Good afternoon, Year 9. So today we're doing something, this part of the course is easier, alright, so if you've been having any trouble with the indices, especially as they got a bit harder, this is going to give you a bit of a break because this part of the chapter is much easier. Okay, so what we're doing is significant figures. So we use significant figures to show really big numbers or really small numbers. So when we're looking at something like the coronavirus, which is skyrocketing, we might be looking at really big numbers. If we're looking at the little microbes that are involved in the actual disease, they might be really small numbers that we're looking at. So all those things in the science world, when we're looking at astronomy, we're looking at how far planets are away from each other, they're really big numbers. Looking at scientific things where you're looking through microscopes, we're looking at really small numbers. So this part of the topic is all about those really big numbers and those really small numbers. So significant figures are not like decimal places. So we can round to decimal places or we can round to significant figures. So it depends on what the question asks you for. So we need to know how to count significant figures. We know how to count decimal places. That's easy. We start at the decimal point, we just keep counting from there. But to count significant figures, you start from the first non-zero digit and keep counting. When you get towards the end of the number, if you see a lot of zeros together at the end, they are not significant, so you don't count them. Okay, so our first question here is state the number of significant figures. You should find these easy. So in the first one we have 457. This digit is the first digit, it's not a zero, so we can start counting now. 1, 2, 3. That's 3 significant figures. The next one, the first digit here, that's not a zero, so we're going to start counting here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 significant figures. When we look at this next one, we don't start counting till the first digit that's not a zero. So you're going to ignore all of these. Here's the first digit that's not a zero, so we're going to count from here. 1, 2, 3 significant figures. In this next one, the first digit is not a zero, so we can count from here. 1, 2, but then we see all these zeros in a row at the end of the number. We don't count those, so it's just 2 significant figures. Alright, down here we are going to now start rounding off. So this one says round to 3 significant figures. So here's our number, we've got a decimal, 37.609. We're rounding to 3 significant figures. So this is our first digit, it's not a zero, so we're going to count 1, 2, 3, underline them. There's your 3 significant figures. Now we're rounding, so we're going to draw the line after the third significant figure. Look at the next digit after the line. If that is less than 5, which it is, this stays as it is. So that's going to stay as a 6, and everything in front will stay as it is. That's your number, 37.6. In the next one, we have a number 1,769,000. 3 significant figures. Start counting from the first digit that's not a zero. 1, 2, 3. Draw your line, circle your next digit. If that is less than 5, the number before the line would stay as it is. But if it's 5 or more, the number before the line goes up by 1. So this number that we've circled is 5 or more. So this one before the line is going up by 1. That will become a 7. Keep everything else before it. Now, like we have done before when we've done things like rounding to the nearest 1,000 and things like that, you can't just leave the answer as 177. 177 is nothing like 1,769,000. So we would never round 1,769,000 off to 177. So we have to keep going with our digits right up to the decimal point. This whole number has a decimal point at the end. So all these blank spaces here have to be filled in with zeros. And then the answer actually makes sense. 1,769,000 could be rounded off to 1,770,000. Okay. Next question. So we have write 0.00158 correct to 2 significant figures. So we're going to write down the number, okay? Take the time to write it down. When you're doing this for your homework, That's the first thing. You don't have to write this down, the question, but you do have to write the number down that you're dealing with. So now we're going to look at what two significant figures is. None of these are significant. We start counting from the first digit that's not a 0. So there's the first digit that's not a 0. So we've got 1, 2 significant figures. Draw your line for rounding. Circle the next digit. The circled digit is more than 5, so the one before the line will go up by 1 and become a 6. Copy everything else in front. Okay, the next one, we have 45,067,853. We're rounding to 3 significant figures. Copy the number down first. That's not a 0, so we can start counting our significant figures from here. 1, 2, 3 significant figures. Draw your line, circle the next digit. This is 5 or more. The number before the line will go up by 1 and become a 1. Everything before that gets written down as well. Now remember what I said before, we have to go all the way up to the decimal point, which for a whole number is at the end. So all these empty spaces have to be filled in with zeros. Then the answer will actually look right. 45,067,853 would round off to 45,100,000. Okay, that's a possible answer. So if you're looking at your answer going, that's nowhere near the question, then you probably haven't got the right number of zeros at the end. Okay, so the next one, rounding correct to 1 significant figure. Here's our number, 1 significant figure. That's significant because it's not a 0. So there's your 1 significant figure. Draw your line and circle the next digit. This is less than 5, so the number before the line will stay as it is. And we're up to the decimal point, so that's it. Next one. There's our number. We're rounding to 1 significant figure for these ones. So our first significant figure is here. After we get over all the zeros at the beginning, draw your line, circle the next digit. That one is 5 or more, so the one before the line goes up by 1 and becomes an 8. Copy everything else in front. Remember, there's no need for any extra zeros unless you're still going towards the end of a whole number. Alright, in this one here, there's your 1 significant figure. Draw your line, circle your next digit. This 8 is 5 or more, so that makes the one before the line go up by 1. That will become 2. Now remember, we have to fill in zeros till we get to the decimal point, so we're filling in 3 zeros here. Okay, so we're going to apply it to a few word problems here. The questions are no harder. You've just got to read through the words a little bit. So this one says a company makes a profit of $35,754,125. We are going to round that profit off to the nearest $10 million. So I've written the profit down here. Now the digit that's in the 10 millions column is the 3 here. Okay, so that will be the units, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, 1 million, 10 million. So we're rounding off to $10 million. So we've got to draw our line after the digit in the 10 millions column. Circle the next digit. 5 or more for the circled digit means we go up by 1 with this one, which will take it to a 4. Fill in all the zeros till you get to the decimal point. So we have rounded our $35,754,125 off to $40 million. The number of significant figures in that answer is also what they asked for. It's 1, because none of these count when they end the number and they're all zeros. So it's just 1 significant figure that we have in that answer. Okay, the next one. Australia's population in 2010 was 21,387,000. So I think today we're well over 25 million, so you can see how quickly our population is growing. But back in 2010, it was 21,387,000. It probably wasn't exactly that. Okay, it looks like they've done a bit of rounding to get 3 zeros on the end. So the question says, to how many significant figures has this number been written? So it probably has been rounded off. So all we've got to do is count the significant figures from the first digit that's not a 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It ends in a row of zeros, we don't count those, so it's 5 significant figures. Okay, the last 2 questions. Now these ones you're going to be using your calculator. This is the question. We are evaluating that, getting an answer off your calculator, but you've got to do it to the number of significant figures in the bracket at the end. So this is one significant figure that we're going to round to. So all you need to do first is put all that in your calculator. Just make sure your screen looks like that. So start by pressing the fraction button, put in all of this stuff on the top, down arrow, put all that stuff in on the bottom, make sure your screen looks like that, press equals. It will give you this answer. Write it down. After that, you're then going to round that off to one significant figure. That's not significant, that's not significant. Here's your first digit that's not a 0. That's your one significant figure. Draw your line after that. Circle your next digit. If that circled number is less than 5, the number before the line stays as it is. So we keep it as a 6, copy everything in front, and that's your answer. So the last one, again, you make sure that you have a calculator screen that looks identical to that. So we're going to press the fraction button, put the 1 on the top, down arrow, put 0.941 on the bottom, right arrow out of your fraction, press the plus sign, press the fraction key again, 253 on the top, down arrow, 0.0076 on the bottom, press equals at the end, and you will get this answer. Now they've asked for 3 significant figures, so you write this answer down first. For 3 significant figures, we've got 1, 2, 3 significant figures. Draw your line, circle the next digit. We have a 9 being circled, that's 5 or more. So the 1 before the line goes up by 1. So 2 will become a 3. Copy everything in front. And then make sure we continue with zeros up to the decimal point. So we need to fill in 2 zeros. So that's the end of the questions, the examples. Hope you've got all this copied down. Now it's your turn to have a go in your homework. As I said, it's not hard. And all you need to do is copy down whatever the number is in the question before you do any rounding. Okay? Good luck.